water loop.
Welcome to Waterloop, the podcast exploring solutions for sustainability and equity in water. I'm the host, Travis Loop. This is episode number 236. Meet leaders emerging in water now. Developing and recognizing emerging leaders in the water sector is crucial for addressing current and future challenges. The WaterNow Alliance's Emerging Leaders Program plays a vital role in this effort by identifying and supporting professionals who are driving positive change in their communities. This episode presents brief interviews with the 7 individuals recognized this year, along with Caroline Koch of the WaterNow Alliance, discussing their impactful work in areas like lead line replacement, green stormwater infrastructure, and fostering diversity and equity within utilities. Their efforts demonstrate the transformative potential of emerging leadership in water management. First, we hear from Caroline Koch of the WaterNow Alliance about the importance of recognizing emerging leaders.
WaterNow focuses on emerging leaders as really that next generation, the folks who are coming up in their utilities, in their communities, who will be the future general managers, the future city council members who are raising their hands and voting on water issues, and talking with them now and learning from them and providing opportunities to elevate the great work that they're already doing is really important to advancing the core mission of WaterNow, which is really, again, about those equitable, sustainable, climate-resilient water solutions. And the emerging leaders in our cohorts of 4 years so far really are already displaying those leadership qualities on project bases, initiatives that they've started, and really our award program is a platform to elevate them, share their great work with the water sector more broadly, and bring them into the water leader community for the future. Every year we hold a water leader nomination round, and their peers, their supervisors, or even the water leaders themselves can nominate during that process to really highlight that project or program that they've been working on. And through that nomination process, we identify, 4 to 7 even this year, great mid-level staff members at utilities who are excelling at what they're doing. So then we hold our annual award ceremony, which this year we're very grateful was part of the Water Center at Penn's Spring Water Policy Forum, to really feature what they're doing and let people know about it. But it doesn't end there. We also provide a stipend for the award winners to go on and participate in additional leadership training, professional development programs to continue their leadership journey. And we also provide workshops and convenings and ongoing connection with WaterNow resources and the cohort and the prior year cohorts to really create that network of the emerging leaders for the future as well, which brings us to the Spring Point Hive today, actually, for our workshop exploring things like trust building, workforce development, of course, as well as climate resilience and what we are facing and how we can overcome our climate change challenges. Yeah, the caliber of our emerging leaders that we've featured over the past 4 years is just so impressive. Every year during the award ceremony, I just am in awe of what they're able to accomplish. I'm also very honored to have worked with some of our emerging leaders on individual programs, both before they were award winners and after, on some trust building work in Walnut Valley, California, stormwater feed development in New Orleans, as well as other projects. And I am really just blown away about how great and dedicated and special these folks are.
Next is David Fielder, the project manager for the Detroit Water and Sewerage Department's lead line replacement program.
My name is Dave Fielder. I am the project manager responsible for lead compliance at the city of Detroit. So there are two halves of the compliance piece. That's the replacements of lead lines, as well as the sampling that takes place all year round, and our summertime compliance sampling as well. Now, the city of Detroit has several contracts going at the same time, and combined, we're replacing 100 plus a week. Easy. I mean, and we've had weeks where we're getting to the 150, 160, 170 plus, and that's just the beginning. We've got goals that are lofty, but it's because, again, of the funding that we've received and the hard work of the men and women that I get a chance to work with every single day. One of the best things that I've seen with the program now, because thankfully we have the funding to do so much work now, is getting to drive through the city on these different projects and see all of the change that's taking place at the same time. Getting to talk to residents day in and day out who are thankful that we've gotten to their neighborhood and that they no longer have to worry about lead service lines being attached to their home. I think that's the thing that's kind of on my heart now. The biggest impact is the one that you get to see neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood. And the great thing is, when they do give details about the work, the details that I'm hearing are your contractors or your field service technicians that work for the department. They were so professional. They were so kind. They were so courteous. They were in and out very fast. The work looks great. And so when you get to hear those stories from the people that are really impacted by the work, it's a good feeling that you get to take back home with you. Our director, Mr. Brown, has said several times that it's our job to maintain the trust of the public. And projects like this are exactly how you establish that, right? When you go in knowing what the problem is and saying, hey, we're going to solve it, and then you solve it, house after house after house, neighborhood by neighborhood, community by community, you not only maintain but build that trust. And so these projects are the cornerstone of building that trust. And fortunately enough, again, because I work with such phenomenal men and women, we're doing the work that allows us to walk through these neighborhoods and be trusted by the people that we serve. Mr. Brown, our deputy director, and Mr. Sam Smalley, our deputy director, have prioritized lead compliance for years. So the rule coming down for the city of Detroit is something that we'll, definitely have to monitor and watch. But we've been on the cutting edge of compliance for so long that the rule changes are just a small step up. They're not giant or drastic changes that the department has to make at all. But again, it's because of how proactive the department has been since 2018.
Now we talk with Tiffany Diaz, the Regulatory and Conservation Manager for the City of Georgetown in Texas.
My name is Tiffany Diaz. I'm the Regulatory and Conservation Manager at the City of Georgetown, Texas. That's located just north of Austin, Texas. So I have both regulatory teams, so we're doing like the permitting and making sure that we're keeping up with any regulations that are coming down from the state, EPA, et cetera. But I also have the conservation team. So this has been a really exciting journey the past 3 years with conservation, because it came to us, to the water utility, with no staff. So we have created some really great programs. Like we have a controller assistance program where we have licensed irrigators on staff. So yeah, they are taking the lead on our controller assistance program, which is basically if someone is having issues with their irrigation controller, or they're just not really sure how to use it, or if they just need a checkup, we'll do a very basic checkup on their irrigation system for them. All they have to do is just sign up for it, and we'll go free of charge and do it for them. So they do that, and then those licensed irrigators also really help us look at what we need as far as irrigation, landscaping. They kind of take the lead on those projects. So looking at our native landscaping rebate, they're helping us come design that, and really pushing the use of native landscaping in Texas, because we're not meant to have lush green grass, which it's not feasible most of the time. So really taking ownership of keeping more to a native landscape style. we have that. We have some really great new programs with enforcement with our compliance. So we're using AMI meters to automate our irrigation violations. So we're not quite to full automation yet, but we're slowly getting there. But it's going to help us be able to, change those behaviors of, hey, we're on restrictions. Right now we can water 1 day a week. We understand you want to have beautiful, lush green grass, but it's just not what we can do, what we have capacity for. So, hey, check your system, make sure your controller's working. A majority of the time, it's that folks don't realize that they have more than one setting or program on their systems. So that's when the controller systems program come in, and we can help people get their settings corrected. That way they're not in violation any longer. So we have a great deal of things going on. We're increasing our education and outreach as well. We have a painted rain barrel project that we actually took the idea from another organization, Athens County, Georgia. They were kind enough to talk us through it and help us create our own program in Georgetown. It allows us to partner with the arts and culture group with the city too. So we're tying in a whole other group that we never would have maybe had an impact with. So every year now, the fall art stroll and the fall arts festival, water conservation has tables there and 10 painted rain barrels from local artists. So, and then all the proceeds, we auction those off, and all the proceeds go to our local school system for water conservation education.
Next is Dom Bennett, an assistant director for Lee's Summit Water Utilities in Missouri.
My name is Dom Bennett, and I'm the Assistant Director of Customer Care for Lee Summit Water Utilities, and we're a suburb in the Twin City metropolitan area. Yeah, so I am more on the people side of the utility, I guess, that you'd say. So I supervise more community relations, customer service, leadership development, also in that area, kind of the internal culture, strategic planning, feedback collecting, that type of area. My master's is in organization development, so that's kind of my jam a little bit around that area. Well, I think there are a lot of big problems that need to be solved in the water utility space, and it's going to require high-performing teams to be able to solve those problems. And how do you get high-performing teams? You've got to build a culture that is inclusive, that supports that, where they're going to thrive and be able to solve these problems. And so that's where I think there's an increase in this people focus on the utility that we've never really seen before. So recently we've started to kind of foster that inclusive workspace, did a little bit of informal DEI programming, really all stemming around just making people feel safe, valued, seen, and heard at work. So really one of our goals as a utility is to become an employer of choice. Well, how do we do that? Again, have an inclusive workspace where people feel safe and want to come to work, and being able to do that. And so kind of where the program started, it was just a little bit of just doing awareness events on maybe underserved different areas. So we celebrated Black History Month, Women in Water, Hispanic Awareness. We did something for Pride Month. Neurodiversity is another one, more just to educate. I mean, not really spending a lot of money and efforts, but just saying, hey, I see you. That type of message, and that, hey, I see you, goes a long way in building culture. And telling our staff that we value them and who we are. So what we've kind of seen translate from that was, because a lot of times in the utility space, we want data, and we want to be able to, that's part of the thing that I have to overcome quite a bit, is like, well, how do you know that you're finding success and that this is worthwhile? And so I will say that our department in Lee Summit, we probably have the highest level of volunteer and engagement in the community than any other department. And I think that is because of our culture that we fostered around that. People understand the value of water. They understand the role that they play in the community. And so they want to be a part of that bigger picture and being able to do that. And so we use those opportunities. We're involved with Rotary, and I serve on the board for that as well, and telling our story there as well. Rotary people, I think, is another area that is a miss for water folks because they are passionate about water. It's one of their founding principles in Rotary. And so they get it, and it's an easy avenue to get ambassadors to help you tell the story of the utility. So we're involved in Rotary, we're involved with chamber events, we serve on credit union boards. I mean, there's just so many different avenues that you wouldn't think that the utility would be in. And we're there. We have a seat at the table. And you know what? We're solving these problems as a holistic approach to the community as a whole, but we're also using those as opportunities to tell our story and how the utility can fit.
Now we hear from Christopher Lang, a project manager for the City of New Orleans Department of Stormwater and Green Infrastructure.
My name is Chris Lang. I'm a project manager for the Department of Stormwater and Green Infrastructure, which is part of the City of New Orleans. And within that role, I manage the planning activities. So the city was awarded $141 million through the National Disaster Resilience competition back in, I think it was 2017. And so through that process, there was a particular district, Gentilly Resilience District, that was named. And it's an area that's really low-lying, prone to flooding, in a bowl within the bowl, when you're thinking about New Orleans topography and elevation. And this area is also, historic African-American community, and it's a huge site of cultural influence, as well as Treme and some of the other, neighborhoods in the city. And so this particular district was slated for receiving a lot of capital project investments, installations of green infrastructure projects, bigger scale in terms of water absorption and storage, up to 9 million gallons for certain areas. Which is really important for that area. So working with them and trying to also work with, the drainage and the gray infrastructure, kind of mediating green and gray infrastructure, is part of the bigger project of the Gentilly Resilience District. And then within that, there's also planning activities with this grant that include, species monitoring, pre versus post construction of these installations. How are species changing? The goal is to really remove invasives, bring more of the native biodiversity back. Also hydrology, so groundwater monitoring installations, or well installations. So, figuring out the baseline water levels and how, after a big flood event, how does the baseline change, or during drought, which we experienced last year for about 5 months, how does that change the water table level, and how would that influence sort of susceptibility to flooding or subsidence also in the city, because that area has a lot of peat, moss, or peat, and things that are susceptible to oxidation, which creates subsidence and the compaction of land, and that can impact quality of life, infrastructure, drainage lines, also foundations of buildings. So getting that baseline of information, you can't really manage what you don't know. So if you can get that information and make it public facing, get the database, get, mapping, spatially map it with, flooding, with, access to, walkability, green infrastructure, all of those kind of overlaid on the same map. That's another project that I manage through that the Trust for Public Land is leading. So I like it because it's very dynamic. It kind of is working with a lot of the information. So you're reading a lot of reports, you're making sure that they are, ticking all the boxes that the grant requires, but also thinking how to, really center equity in that process as well. We're thinking about historic African-American areas that are also, low income, moderate income, bringing more investments in green infrastructure investments is really great, but it also has this unintended consequence of raising property values, which can then also inadvertently push the community that it was intended for out. So thinking about how do we creatively, at least first name these things and be aware of them, and then also monitor them, and also potentially create policies that can, address those or prevent them from happening.
Now is Grace Vogel Sanders, a landscape architect with the Sewerage and Water Board of New Orleans.
My name is Grace Vogel Sanders. I'm a landscape architect, and I work for the Sewage and Water Board of New Orleans. It's the water utility in New Orleans. It does pumps the stormwater, purifies the drinking water, and collects and treats the sewage. And I am the first landscape architect that's been hired into this area in the water sector. I'm pretty sure I'm the only landscape architect that works for our water utility. It was definitely important in our green infrastructure program because in the beginning it's a lot of planning and a lot of project management. But to manage the maintenance and ongoing life of these projects, it's a lot of horticulture, and it's a lot of understanding what species and what they're going to do and where they should be placed. And I've had the ability also to give input about different trees and placements that are being planted around our infrastructure. So it's easier for the community to have somebody they can talk to that is interested. That's been important to me, to be that liaison to the community and be able to let them know that we do support those things. And I think that's a big part of our green infrastructure program as well, the outreach that's, humanizing the efforts of the water utility to, lessons learned over 10 years. And I had the chance to go back to one with the last bit of funding we had and rehabilitate it. It's really harsh climate in New Orleans. It's really hot. The UV is intense. And so some of the materials at one of our sites just fell apart. It was a sunshade situation, but it was to gather rainfall into these different areas for harvesting, catchment, whatnot. And just from the UV and also the hurricanes and whatnot, the last hurricane just like ripped a whole piece of it off. And we couldn't even replace it because that company didn't even exist anymore. So we're like, what can we do that's more structural, that will last longer and actually, double as rainwater harvesting and catchment, but more of a shade structure, more of a community meeting place, because it's in the middle of a community that spends a lot of time outdoors. So it was really great to be able to rehabilitate that and reconnect with the community, because I wasn't around with its initial installation, so I never connected with the people that are out there. And it's very close to my office, so it's only like half a mile away, so I get to get out there, especially during rain events, and go check on the irises that we planted, make sure the trees are doing well, which to me is my favorite part, because that's my my area of expertise. I'm a landscape architect. I really would rather be out there picking weeds and fertilizing and making sure the arbor ties are getting cut off at the right time. And we planted trees a little late last year, so I brought out the hoses and made sure the watering bags were filled throughout the summer to make sure that our investments live through.
Next, we hear from Xochitl Coronado-Vargas, a public outreach coordinator with the City of Tucson's Green Stormwater Infrastructure Program.
My name is Xochitl Coronado-Vargas. I'm the public outreach coordinator for the City of Tucson's Storm to Shade program, which is the city's green stormwater infrastructure program. So I interface with residents and communities when we're going to build new green stormwater infrastructure in their community. I interface a lot with the ward offices to see where their priorities are for us to spend the infrastructure dollars. And I also talk to community members during every phase of our program. So we also have a maintenance component, and we talk to community about proper maintenance of green stormwater infrastructure, and just really outreaching and giving a lot of information and education about really what the function and the benefits are in stormwater infrastructure. So recently, we did a big installation at a neighborhood center called the El Rio Neighborhood Center, and I did a lot of outreach for that project. And when I spoke to the ward office and to the neighborhood center director, it really was clear that what we needed to do is do education and really bring the information to the users of the center. So the center has a couple of schools, like a kindergarten and a first grade school. They have an adult, like a senior program for senior adults. They also have adult education classes there for people getting their GED or English language acquisition classes. And they have there's a small library branch that operates out of that center as well. And with all those users of the center, what we really wanted to do is what is it that they want to see there, and how important is green stormwater infrastructure to them? And a lot of them really didn't know what it was. So what was requested of me is to come in and really give presentations to the adult education students, to the seniors. We did some collaborative projects with the library there and the school. So we did some storytelling activities with the students there, and talked about really the project that was getting built there. And when we celebrated, we had all of these different components of this outreach really in an educational method. And we had plant giveaways and seed giveaways, and people are very excited. And now when they walk into the center, they are walking into a water harvesting system, and they actually can identify what is happening, right? And how it's functioning and why it's there and what is important about it. It also gave me an opportunity to talk to people about how they can incorporate water harvesting in their own house, because Tucson Water has a great conservation program that offers rebates for residential home water harvesting, as well as gray water harvesting and all sorts of other awesome rebates. And so after I talked about all the benefits of green stormwater infrastructure, people were like, I want to do this at my house, you know? And it's not so foreign to people. I mean, we have a really high percentage of the people living in Tucson that are of Mexican descent. And so we know, because our grandparents taught us, that you can put a bucket where the water's dripping on the edge of the house and then take that bucket and put it in the tree well. Or you'll just dig a little trench so that water just goes straight to where the tree well is, because we live in such a dry environment that every drop is very valuable to us. And I think that's been really passed down.
And now we talk with Amanda Jones, a project manager for Tucson Water, who manages the continuous development program for its enterprise asset management system.
I'm Amanda Jones. I'm a project manager at the City of Tucson Water Department. So I work on our digital transformation team. So I'm responsible for the expansion and continuous improvement of our enterprise asset management tools and software. So I work with small sections and divisions across the utility to get them included in our new EAM platform. So ensuring that we have as many departments as possible in the same system, so we can cross-compare data, we can look at different trends that maybe the sections didn't speak to each other before, and really putting that all together to have some good data to make good decisions for the utility and our community. The City of Tucson embarked on this digital transformation about 6 or 7 years ago, and really started from the beginning doing a business operations plan for all of our enterprise systems at the time. So we're talking about asset management, we're talking about our customer information systems, SCADA. We're building a data lake as part of this project as well. So our leadership was very visionary in thinking about how to move our utility forward using some of these new tools that have come out over the last 10 years or so, to really provide a more efficient and streamlined experience, not only for our staff who are using them, but for a customer experience as well. So being able to have new portals and different ways to get data and their own customer information. So one of my first projects for system expansion was working with our Storm to Shade program, our Green Stormwater Infrastructure program at the city. And we use traditional asset management best practices and methodologies, things that are used on pumps and disinfection tanks and things like that. We applied those to living assets, so trees and bushes and cacti and inlets, outlets, scuppers, all these things that we don't traditionally think of as assets, we were able to put into our asset management system in a way that now we can see how these features grow. We can track their growth over time. We can see how well they're maintained. We can, provide those metrics to show that as the trees get bigger, the quality of life gets better in the community. So we're able to track that using traditional asset management methods, which is very cool, very exciting, and I think one of the first in the West for sure, if not in the country.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. To find all episodes, sign up for email updates, and connect on social media, visit waterloop.org.
Or in the water loop.